If you like our video, click the subscribe button to subscribe to our channel and get easy access to new content. To see our full suite of ad-free video courses and training materials, visit us at teachucomp.com. To open the Vendors page in QuickBooks Online, click the Expenses link in the navigation bar. Then click the Vendors tab at the top of the page that opens to the right. Alternatively, hover over the Expenses link in the navigation bar, and then roll over and click the Vendors link in the side menu that appears to also open the same page. After adding vendors to your vendors list, a money bar appears at the top of the page that shows the unbilled last 365 days, unpaid last 365 days, and paid items. Clicking any section in the money bar filters the vendor list to only show vendors with that type of transaction. Click the Clear Filter/View All link above the money bar to remove the filter. In the lower right corner of the money bar is a small arrow you can click to collapse or expand the money bar. Below the money bar is the vendor list. In the upper left corner of this list is a Batch Actions drop-down. You can check the checkbox next to the names of the vendors in the vendors list on which to perform a batch action, and then click this button and select the desired batch action choice from the drop-down. To find a vendor, enter a search term into the search field at the top of the vendor list. Then press the Enter key on your keyboard. If needed, you can delete the entry you typed into the search field and then press the Enter key on your keyboard to show all the vendors again. To sort the vendors list, click the Vendor/Company column labels or the Open Balance column label to sort by the values in the column label you click. You can click the same label again to change the sort order if needed. The sort order, either ascending or descending, is shown by a small arrow pointing up or pointing down next to the name of the label by which you are sorting the data. Also note that you can sort by either the vendor or company name by clicking the desired label within that single column. In the upper right corner above the vendor list are three buttons for Print List, Export to Excel, and Settings. Clicking the Print List button opens a printer-friendly vendor list page and also opens your web browser's print dialog box. Clicking the Export to Excel button downloads the vendor list as an Excel workbook. Clicking the Settings button shows vendor list display options in a drop-down menu. Under the Columns heading in the drop-down menu, you can check or uncheck the names of the columns to show or hide them in the list. Checking the Include Inactive checkbox under the Other heading in the drop-down menu shows any inactive vendors within the list. Clicking the Rows drop-down in the drop-down menu shows another drop-down menu that lets you select the number of vendor rows to show per page in the list. By default, the vendor list shows the vendor/company, phone, email, open balance, and action columns. The action column contains a drop-down that lets you choose an action depending on what actions are currently available for the selected vendor. The choices include Create Bill, Make Payment after entering bills, Create Expense, Write Check, Create Purchase Order, and Make Inactive. Other than the Make Inactive choice, clicking each choice opens a page where you can perform the task. In the lower right corner of the vendor list are the first, previous, next, and last links. You can click these links to navigate through multiple pages of the vendor list if needed. To edit a vendor, click the vendor's name to open a vendor detail page that contains a transaction list and vendor details tab. Either click the Vendor Details tab and then click the Edit button in the upper right corner of the tab, or click the Edit button at the top right-hand side of the page to open the vendor information window. Change the information here, and then click the Save button. Note that clicking the Transaction List tab in the Vendor Detail page shows the vendor's transactions. While you cannot delete a vendor, QuickBooks Online Plus lets you inactivate vendors with a zero balance. One way to do this is to click the vendor to inactivate in the list to open the vendor detail page. Click the Edit button in the upper right corner of the page to open the vendor information window. Then click the Make Inactive button at the bottom of the window. If the vendor has a zero balance, a pop-up box opens asking if you want to make this vendor inactive. Click the Yes button to confirm it. If the vendor has an open balance, a warning pop-up box appears instead asking to confirm that making this vendor inactive will cause an adjusting transaction to be created. Is this okay? If so, click Yes to make the vendor inactive and create the adjusting transaction. Alternatively, note you can also inactivate a vendor by simply choosing the Make Inactive choice from the action column for the vendor in the vendors list. To reactivate an inactive vendor, click the Settings button above the vendor list in the Vendors page. To display inactive vendors in your vendor list, check the Include Inactive checkbox. To reactivate an inactive vendor, click the Make Active link in the Action column of the vendor record to reactivate. Remember to click the subscribe button to see more of our videos. Get ad-free courses at teachucomp.com.